Hello and welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I am once again your guest host, Sofia Wolfson. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm continuing on my project of bringing you young, up-and-coming, guitar-driven singer-songwriters, artists, and bands who you may not have heard of, but are putting out really incredible records, and I think you're going to be seeing their name everywhere soon. So last time I hosted the show, I had on Rennie Conti. I hope you've been enjoying his self-titled record. And today I have on Sofia Jensen, whose band name is called Free Range. And they've got a new record out today called Lost and Found. I discovered Sofia's music a few years ago on the internet, as one does during the pandemic. And I was just really taken by their melodies and their lyric writing and how guitar forward the music was. And I started watching their videos, and they have such incredible feel. And I've gotten to see them live a number of times, and the band is super electric. And, you know, Sofia is only 21, but is truly wise beyond their years. And the music is just so developed and rich already. And I'm lucky to call Sofia a good friend. So in this episode, we talk a bit about their musical origins in Chicago, being surrounded by, like, you know, the extended Wilco family and situation, recording in the loft. We talk about their first record practice, which they made all throughout high school. And that eventually came out in 2023. And we talk a lot about the recording process of their new record, Lost and Found, which is out today. We talk gear, we talk books. We really cover a lot in this. So I hope you enjoy. The Fretboard Journal podcast is brought to you by a handful of great brands, so please celebrate them. First up is Peghead Nation. For 10 years now, it has been the finest spot on the internet to become an acoustic guitar player. You can get your first month free or $20 off any annual subscription with the promo code Fretboard at checkout. The Fretboard Journal podcast is also brought to you by Stringjoy Strings. You can save 10% on your first order at stringjoy.com with the promo code Fretboard. So listeners of the Fretboard Journal podcast probably will be unfamiliar with you and your music. And so let's start from the beginning. So You are born in Chicago and raised there, yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
What is your earliest musical memory, or one of your earliest?
Um, well, I grew up going to Pitchfork because my mom always volunteered there, and so we would go every year. And I remember bits and pieces of that as a really young kid, but we also went to the Hideout block party, which doesn't happen anymore, but it's this the Hideout, one of our venues, they used to throw a block party, and I remember seeing Wilco play there when I was a kid, and it was right immediately after Sky Blue Sky came out, and they
Whoa.
I remember just they opened with Either Way, and I was 5 or something. It's one of my earliest memories, period.
Well, and I don't want to skip ahead too much, but I will tell listeners that, you know, it is kind of full circle because you have a live EP that you recorded at the Wilco Loft.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Crazy.
Okay, so kind of on this train, when did you kind of come to guitar? Was it your own choosing? Was it your parents' encouragement? What was
It
it?
was definitely all me, because I started I did piano as a really young kid. When I was 4, I started doing piano lessons, but it was very classically oriented. And that was just my introduction to playing music. And but there was definitely a few years where I really wanted to play guitar. I was really done with I didn't want to play classical music because I didn't listen to it, and I just thought guitar was really cool. And my parents were kind of they were very supportive of me playing music, but they were kind of didn't want me to just walk away from piano just like it was, like they wanted it like me to give it a real shot and then like make sure that I wanted to play guitar for the right reasons, I guess. And like,
Yeah.
but but yeah, then I started playing guitar when I was like in middle school, and um yeah, I just thought it was so sick. I would like go to Guitar Center and like with my dad and like sit in the acoustic guitar room and be like, I remember this guy in there. He was like, "Man, I'll sit down. And I'll show you how to play Stairway to Heaven. It's real simple." And I was like, "Amazing!
In
People are
those
so helpful here."
in those early years, did you have a teacher?
Yeah, I did School of Rock, and so I
Oh,
had,
you're right. You are a School of Rock kid. So, okay,
yeah,
could you explain the institution of School of Rock to listeners who might not know what School of Rock is?
yeah. So I mean, it's like how the movie is, where it's rock band vibe.
Hmm.
So it's the whole philosophy of, I guess, is like learning music through a live band setting as opposed to just through like private instruction. But there is like, everyone gets a private instructor, and I had like the same, my first teacher, I had him for like 2 years. Um, and yeah, that was like amazing. I mean, it was very frustrating. Like I remember like right when I started playing guitar, I was just like, this doesn't make sense.
Right, you had
It's
been
like
playing
not
piano.
non-linear. Yeah, it's non-linear, and it was so frustrating. I remember just like having like breakdowns, like telling my parents like it doesn't make sense. I don't understand how I'm supposed to like know what I'm doing.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
But you stuck
I
with it.
figured it. Yeah, I stuck with it. I just wanted to. I was just like talking about this actually, like why like I started playing guitar. I feel like more than anything was like I just wanted to like play the songs that I liked like
Mm.
to myself, because I was like, oh, this is like a great song, but I want to, have like control over how I'm like hearing it. Like
Yeah, totally.
I want it to be like slower and like prettier, like whatever. And like if it's like a pop song, and like I would like wanted to play it on acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Um, the first time I found out what I found out what a capo was, because I really wanted to learn how to play Riptide
No
by Vance
way.
Joy, and that was
That
on
was your
Ultimate
introduction
Guitar.
to the capo?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was like, oh, it says Capo 4 on Ultimate Guitar. When I looked up, yeah, Riptide by Vance Joy, and I was like, Dad, I don't know what the hell this is, but we have to
But I
go and
need
get
it.
it.
Yeah.
I can't play the song without it.
And so
Um,
when did Free Range as a band come into existence?
um, I was like 15, um, when I like it was like a real thing. Like I kind of
Mm.
had a band earlier in high school, like my freshman year, but it never went beyond rehearsals, and it
Mm.
was like I had some of the songs were like, songs that are on my first record
Right.
that we were playing, some of them, maybe like three or four of them, but um yeah, it was like a very like thrown together band, and we rehearsed like maybe once. Like it was like
Got
no one
it.
was ever free, and so it was like not a band. And then
Yeah.
I like tried again
Mm.
the next year when I was like writing more, and I was like, I actually like want to do this for real and like want to like play shows.
At
Um
15. That's pretty young. But
yeah.
that's what
Well,
you and I have in common.
yeah. It's true.
Okay, so
So yeah,
what was the first Free Range show?
it was at this place called CT House, which was, I think it's still around, just like a DIY venue in like the suburbs. I don't
Hmm.
remember what suburb of Chicago, but um yeah, it was like in the winter, like
Mm.
winter of my sophomore year, and like it was like out in the suburbs. My mom like dropped us off, and it was just like in a basement with like,
Wow.
free PVR, and she was like, "Have fun." And it was sick.
Yeah.
Um,
What was your
yeah,
experience of that? Were you anxious? Were you like, fuck, I need to do this for the rest of time?
yeah. No, I was like, this is a fucking blast. It was just like
Yeah.
loud and like couldn't hear like anything, but it was really fun. And yeah, I just like met like so many random people and then like saw like these other bands. And it's like funny, like there was like a few bands that it's like I still see them around on bills and stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I played my first ever show with you. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean like the performing aspect was like already pretty comfortable for me because I was doing like School of Rock and stuff and I was doing
Right.
other other kinds of performance too, like through school and stuff. And so like the only thing that was really new was like that I was singing
Mm.
and then that I was like it was my songs. And so um that's like I think the singing thing like took me a while to like figure out how to do and like how to sing also. Just like I had to figure out how to be comfortable like with it and then also just like I mean I never took like voice lessons or anything.
Mm.
And so it was like it was rough at first.
Rough how?
I don't
I
know,
only ask because people might relate to this.
just like it sounds like I mean one I sound like, really really young
Mm.
and but I had never really sung in front of other people before. Like I was like a as a kid I would sing all the time like in front of my parents and like sing in the car and stuff, but that was like the extent of my singing in front of others and like um I don't know, and I don't know. I feel like when you start doing anything like guitar or singing, or
Mm.
you're like you're going purely off of like what do I like, and
Yeah.
like what do I like about it, and like let me do that. And so it's like to me when I hear it, like aside from just like I'm not hitting the notes, it's like I'm like imitating other singers, and it's like
Who were some of those bands and artists kind of in the early free range days that you felt yourself imitating?
I mean all I wanted to be was like Pinegrove basically.
Yeah.
So that was like which I'm like, I think it's a big part, like, your influencers are a big part of like your story.
This is how you
But
learn how to do this stuff,
yeah,
is
like
through
I was like, let
imitation.
me like copy until there's like, you reach like a fork in the road where you're like, this is what that person would do. And I actually want to do something different.
Yeah, that's a
And
really good
like,
way of putting it.
I feel like that's when you start to like, I don't know, find some sort of voice is when you find yourself making like decisions that are just like your own intuition
Yeah,
bit
absolutely.
more than like what's cool to do or like what does that band always do.
Yeah, I mean, I
um
think anybody playing music at 15 is going to
yeah.
be engaging in some level of imitation. And then it kind of, like you said, it just becomes like what you take out of it into your own thing eventually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on this train, so how old were you when your first record Practice came out?
um 18,
Okay, and
I
you had been
think.
working on it for years.
Yeah, or was I 19? Wait,
Okay, still crazy
might have been
young.
19. Yeah,
So
yeah,
talk a little bit about the writing and recording process of that, because you've already mentioned that you had songs from like freshman year of high school that ended up on that record. So can
yeah,
you
I
talk a little
mean,
bit about the process of that record?
yeah, we started making that record my sophomore year, like shortly after we played our first show, as like and like back in high school, like the Free Range was like a very different band, and like
Mm,
the members were all different. It was like my friends from like playing music and
yeah.
um who were like my age, and then I became friends with Jack, who's now my drummer, and like approached him basically being like, let's make a record, and I have all
Mm.
these songs, um and so like we started making that record, and I was like, it was April, I think, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna have a record. Oh, can I swear?
Yes,
Okay.
I've already sweared like 3 times, but this was when I've been on as
Cool.
a guest, this has been my question too.
Yeah, I like
You're
I
good.
actually, yeah, cool. I was like, yeah, we're starting a record in April. I'm probably gonna be done by like June, July. It's gonna be out.
Everyone
And
has been through this
yeah.
this mindset.
So boy was I disappointed a bit to find that it takes longer than that.
It takes
Um
quite long.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, we started it and we worked on it for a while, and it was Jack and I were like a lot of the sessions. It was just us. Like we did like
Hmm.
preliminary kind of like sessions of getting drums from like my then drummer, also named Jack, um,
Jack and
and
Jack.
like
It's almost
Jack
like
and
how we're
Jack.
Sophia and Sophia, both with
Yeah,
an F.
exactly. Both with an F. And but then like after that it was so much of the recording process was like just me and Jack at the
Mm,
very beginning. Like um and Jack was interning at a studio in Chicago at the time that we had access to like for free basically, but only when it
wow.
wasn't booked. So
What
we were
studio was
just
that?
um Rax Tracks. Oh my God, I almost forgot the name.
Rax
Rax
Tracks. Okay,
Tracks. And
cool.
yeah. And it which was like insane, like an insane
Yeah.
privilege because I had never been in a studio setting before, and Jack
Mm,
was like had been recording bands for a while, but had never done like such a like full or what ended up being like such a full blown like
mm,
complete project. And like so he was just able to like, we would go in the middle of the night basically every
wow.
time because that was when it was open.
Yeah.
Like it was like no one else was in there. And so we would like I was like in high school, like after school, and Jack would like pick me up at like 8 p.m. and we'd go to the studio and I would get home at like 3 or 4 or whatever.
And
And I
then
would
go to
like
school the
bring like
next
a
day.
yeah. And um but yeah, it was crazy. And then eventually Jack suggested that we bring Bailey in,
Mm,
who like Jack and Bailey have known each other since they were in like kindergarten and have always played music together. And um, Jack suggested that Bailey kind of just like come in and like just, have some insight on like what we were doing,
yeah.
and basically like turned into like a producer of the
Oh,
record,
cool.
like a co-producer. And so that was like how Bailey was introduced to like being involved in the record. And so a lot of then the sessions turned into being like the three of us,
Mm,
just like always in the studio together. And then like in all of this, like COVID happened. And so
right.
we like paused. And then like in that time, it was like we were kind of at a standstill with the record. Like stuff wasn't resonating anymore and
Mm,
it felt like stuck, and we basically scrapped it. Um, and started over, say for like a few like drum tracks.
wow.
There's one song, the song Keep in Time has like a lot of original tracks.
But besides
Everything
that, you
else,
started over completely.
yeah.
Crazy.
And we started over with the band being me, Jack, and Bailey.
Hmm.
And that was like we were like, let's do this. Like let's have this be like Jack and Bailey. Like we did like a bunch of tracks with them, like live drums and bass.
Hmm.
Um, and that was like, I mean, like, yeah, like just a definite turning point in that record because it became
Yeah.
like just something totally different. Like these were the most serious musicians I had ever met at that point. And like, honestly, still like they were so like music is like what I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
there was no question about it. And I was like, I hadn't really met anyone else like that at that point. There were my friends that I played music with, and like there were also like friends that I have that are now still in bands and like are now at the point like I am where it's like this is what I'm gonna do. But
Hmm.
at the time, like we were all kind of unsure
Yeah.
of like we're in school, we're writing songs and hanging out, and like we like to play music and we like to listen to music, and that was like I knew that I wanted to like keep doing it,
Hmm.
but it was like Jack and Bailey for me were definitely like just an example of like people that were like they're like both 4 or 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
So they were like, you know, like Jack had like like wasn't in college at that point and then was like back in school, but like I was like in the middle of high school, and
Right.
they were like, full blown adults like
Yeah. It's good to have
in
that kind
bands.
of influence and people kind of that you
Yeah.
can look up to that are also helping you.
Yeah, definitely. And so that was like, and they just, I'd never met, I mean, like, no offense to any of like the other musicians I had played with up until
Yeah.
that point. Like we were all just kids, and like,
Yeah.
and then Jack and Bailey come in and kind of like play on these songs. and like totally transformed them. And
Yeah.
like I was like, oh, we can make like a record that sounds like the records that I like, not
Yeah.
just like what other high schoolers are doing or like what like
Totally.
Chicago high school bands like I was like, oh, we can make whatever we want to make. And
hmm
like so we that was like how we moved forward. Like we did a lot of stuff in Rax Tracks and then ended up doing like most of the record like in Jack's mom's basement.
Cool.
Like that was at the time his where his studio setup was in Evanston, just north of Chicago. And so he would like pick me up, like drive all the way down, pick me up, and like we'd drive back and yeah, and then basically when I made the decision to not move away for school
Yeah.
was when I was like, I want this to be like, you know, the band outside of the studio too. Like I want you guys to be my band.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and so we started the record, it was 2019 and came out in 2023.
Nice.
So yeah, it was
Well, what
like
are
it took
some
us
of
like
your,
3 years.
yeah. I'm curious what some of your biggest takeaways are from that 4-year period.
Um, I mean, definitely like it was honestly like it was hard. Like I was like
Yeah.
impatient and I
Yeah.
was like really wanted it to
Well,
just be
again,
done. And then like
you thought it was gonna be a
yeah, I thought it was gonna be
a
like
3 month
3 months, and I was
shindig.
like, what do you mean it's taking 4 years? Like it's never gonna come out. And but like I mean I think about it all the time honestly. Like if we had like made a record in a year even and
Yeah.
like put it out, like it wouldn't have been
That record.
yeah, it would have been a totally different record. Like and we changed like in the course of making that record, like one, my voice changed like super drastically, and so did my playing and like my like comfortability in like the studio. Like
Yeah.
that was like when I, you know, first started making the record, I was like super unfamiliar with it. And so I was like, you know, shaky voice, like shaky guitar playing, just nervous and like didn't know Jack and was like, you know,
Yeah.
wasn't comfortable yet. And then it's like by the end of it, Jack had like had 3 years of like recording experience, like intense, dedicated, just like that was all he was doing.
Yeah.
And like became like a full-blown engineer in that time, like who was like making other records too. And like so it just sonically like it would have been really different. And yeah, and then we ended up like changing, like the songs changed a lot because
Mm.
there was things that we scrapped and I was like, you know, this isn't, I don't like these songs, certain songs anymore, and we added a
I
lot of
mean, we've
stuff.
all experienced that in high school. Like, you
Yeah.
can write a song and hate it by the next week just because you're growing
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and your taste is changing. And
Yeah, totally. And so I feel like things like every record is going to be like super different, like the
yeah.
process and like the outcome. And um sometimes things take a long time.
Yeah.
And when we went in to make our new record, like and we were all like really excited about like, wow, we're gonna go for 10 days and
hmm
make a record, and then it's like
In a contained amount of time.
yeah, it's recorded. Like we have to get on a plane and leave.
Yeah.
Like there's no more like like just let's come back tomorrow and do that. Like we had to be done
Yeah.
basically. And I did go back, but I went back once, only once though. And but yeah, that was like really exciting to be like we're gonna make this record and it's gonna be um like it's gonna capture like an actual moment in time as
Yeah.
opposed to like a long period of time. But I think that's like first records, that's what they're for, you know?
hmm
Like you figure so much out in like the process of doing so many things for the first time.
I do want to talk about the record, which is out today. And well, I'm winking at Sophia through the Zoom because we've definitely recorded this a month before, but it's out today. Congratulations. Um,
Thank you. Wow, it's
and
so fun to be congratulated on something that hasn't even happened yet.
yeah, well, it
It's
will when people
awesome.
are listening to this. Um, okay, so you've just started talking about it, so let's get into it. So the new record is called Lost and Found,
Mm.
and the recording process was a lot different. You flew to where?
Silsbee, Texas. Well, can't fly into Silsbee, but we flew to Houston and then drove to Silsbee,
Okay, so talk a
where
little bit about, yeah, this process, this 10-day process, who you were working with, kind of the studio setup.
yeah, so we went to Lazy Bones Studio, which is Tommy Reed's studio, and Tommy mixed our first record,
Mm,
and um that was kind of like we when we had recorded the record and then we were like looking for someone to mix it, and we kind of like all of a sudden had like a small budget like
mm,
to like do it. Like we had done everything ourselves up until that point, like for free basically. And Jack and I were just kind of like the biggest fans of Tommy's, and we're like,
mm.
this is our number one choice. And like um so we were able to do that, and we like went down to Silsbee, the two of us, and like were there for like the whole mixing process, and
Cool.
ended up like
This is still for the
doing
first record.
this is yeah, still for the
Okay.
first record. And we did some like recording too, like kind of like random
Mm,
tracks here and there, like ended up getting done down there. Because Tommy was just that, I don't know, he's just kind of that way. Like you get excited with him and he has ideas and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And it was so like fluid and fun, and he's just so good at what he does. And the space down there is like it's like on just I mean Silsbee's like very very small town
mm.
in like eastern Texas, like 4 hours from the ocean. And
Whoa.
like it's just like so beautiful and so remote, like where he is. And it's like yeah, it's just I like we went down there, Jack and I, we were like, this is like the most perfect setting to make music. And so there was not really any question like in my mind when we were talking about like where should we go to make the next record. It was just like I really wanted to see, what would happen working with Tommy like start to finish,
Yeah.
and like wanted to see what kind of record we could make with him. And because I mean yeah, Jack and I are such fans of Lamelda, who
Mm-hmm.
Tommy and Hannah are siblings and have always worked together, and like their kind of like collaborative like magic is just like yeah, we wanted it so bad. And so it was them and um Eric Adams, who makes music as Acre Memos,
Mm-hmm.
and he also lives in Silsbee. The three of them were kind of like the team that was assembled, that and we flew down, me, Jack, and Bailey, and Andy, who in between like the first and second record joined the band. Um, and like yeah, it was a very different experience because we were going in like as the band. Like Jack recorded the whole first record and we produced it ourselves, and there was like no like, when we were at the studio and it was just me and Jack, there was like no one to go like be like, how does this work again? Like it was like
Yeah, you're just figuring out yourself.
figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
gotta
But
YouTube some
now you
some
got other
things.
people in the mix.
Yeah. And we had other people like as producers, which was like a very like new thing
Yeah.
that we had never really experienced before. And yeah, it was just honestly like those 10 days are, I think, for all of us like in the band, like some like just magical days.
Yeah.
Like it was just there's like a little cabin on the property that's like separated. Like the studio is connected to Tommy's house, Tommy and his family, where they live. And then there's a cabin where like the bands can stay. And there's
Cool.
like lofted beds and there's like a full kitchen and just like,
It's
it's
like
just
summer
perfect.
camp.
And it's literally like summer camp. And we would just like wake up every day, and walk over with like our cups of coffee to like the studio and just like get started. And it was like, and then we'd like end like at 7 p.m. every night and like make dinner together and then watch King of the Hill. And that's what we did every single night.
Idyllic
And
experience.
yeah, and it was like for the most part like pretty non-stressful and just
Mm,
fun. And yeah, and we kind of went into it with very little preparation. like,
Interesting.
which wasn't totally intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of had just underestimated like the appropriate amount of preparation, and we got there, and I was like, we probably should have rehearsed more. Um, like we had, 15 songs that we went in like being like we're gonna record all of these,
Yeah.
and then cut it down eventually.
Yeah.
Um, but then like, we were down there, and there were so many things about how fresh it was
Mm.
for the band that I think was like really huge for how it ended up sounding. Just like we were just really excited. Like we weren't tired of the songs at all. They were like brand new for like as band arrangement songs, and like um yeah, we just went song by song. We did like kind of basic tracking, like all the basic instruments were done live. Um and then just yeah, and then we left,
That
and
was that.
Tommy spent and then and that was that. Tommy spent like a month and a half like living like deep in those songs, and like
Yeah.
kind of like creatively mixing and like recording at the same time, and like really kind of shaped the record in a way that I wasn't expecting him to. And
Mm.
like I was like, I could not have made this record by myself. Like this was like the most like collaborative like group effort, where it was like if one of us wasn't there, I
Right.
don't think it would have been nearly the same kind of record. And like um yeah, it was kind of incredible. Like I had never experienced something like that, like putting a project like that just like fully in someone else's hands, and being
Mm.
like, I want you to try whatever you want to try, and I'm excited to hear it. And yeah, and then after that, like we like went on tour in that time, and then I went back to Silsby alone, and it was just me and um Tommy and Eric, and we recorded two more songs that I had written like in between the sessions.
So what songs are
Um
those that got added to the record?
Big Star and Conditions.
Well,
Um
you know Conditions is my favorite song on the record. I've
yeah.
made this very clear to you. So I'm glad you added it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And that was like Tommy just kind of at a certain point was like, I feel like he had like rearranged things and cut a bunch of songs, or like whittled it down to like 10 songs,
Hmm.
and was like, I feel like there's like a gap, like there's
Mm.
something missing with like because like really with how much material we had, and like there was such a like just variety of songs, like kinds of songs, that we could have made so many different kinds of records with like what we
Yeah.
ended up with. And so it really was like there were a lot of decisions to make. Like it wasn't just like here's what we made and it's kind of like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of things that could have like changed it and made it a totally different sounding record. And I had written Conditions in like February, the month after we like did the full band recording, and
Hmm.
then we went on tour, and I wrote what ended up becoming Big Star, which was a total joke song that we as a band kind of conceived of.
Uh-huh.
um that I
What was
mean
the joke?
um I mean the joke is, it's about well, at a certain point on tour we started making songs in the van with the merch iPad on like GarageBand, just
Sick.
like, using like GarageBand like in-app instruments, and like
Uh-huh.
I was like doing this like in the back seat of the van, and like um that song was like one of like the first like actual song that I wrote like that on tour. And it had come from this joke about Jack and Andy misinterpreting, or like not knowing how to pronounce the like wafer cookies, Pirulines, or however you say
Okay.
them. I mean, I don't know how to say them
We
still.
still, the jury's still out on this.
Yeah, and I wasn't even present for this because we had like split up in New York, because like there was nowhere for us to stay that was like, could house all of us. And and Jack and Andy just like in retelling, like this has been retold to me, but
Uh-huh.
they like fell asleep looking at the tin of
Uh-huh.
Pure Louise and were like, how do you even say that? Paraluans? And
Paraluans.
Paraluans, or like pair of Luans.
Yeah.
And of course, Luan is the name of a character in King of the Hill that we famously love,
Yeah. Which
and
has already been mentioned.
which has already been mentioned. And so, um, yeah, they told me about this and they thought it was so funny, and I was like, I'm gonna interpret this as like Paraluan is like a woman, like a
Uh-huh.
girl, and I'm gonna write a song about her, about like being in love with her.
I
Um,
love it.
and that's how it started. And then it kind of like I definitely took a lot of influence from like the like southern kind of vibe just from King of the Hill, and like just like picturing the like Luann character in my mind. And it's a pretty dark song though, for considering
Funny of its
um
origins.
how
It
funny it is. Like even like because it had totally different lyrics for the most part when we wrote it on tour, but even then like the idea was like pretty like developed. Like we had a whole backstory of like this is about like this character Luann, like, and like this is being written from the perspective of like this boy who like was just always in love with her, and then like they're in high school and Luann dies and he's
wow.
just like he's heartbroken. And yeah, I just had this like weird idea of like the only like he's like trying to process this like grief or whatever by like he ends up getting her like old car, like her old like, and it was kind of like a sporty kind of car that she like
Hmm.
loved. And he like kind of gets this car and he's like putting all of this time and energy and emotion into like repairing it and like keeping it like it's like some old car, like initially in like the original lyrics it was like a Trans Am that I like had that in the lyrics, and I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, and so it's kind of about like someone like dealing with like losing their like friend who they were in love with, and they're like in high school and they're just like, I don't know where to put this, like,
You never know
you
what the
know.
origin of your favorite songs are, even especially the darkest, darkest ones.
I actually like I really because I showed it to Tommy. I had a whole batch of songs that I wrote on this tour on the iPad that I showed to Tommy because I mean, they were very funny to me, but I was like, I put a lot of time into them. Like I
Yeah.
spent like 5 hour drives, like just like shutting everyone out and being like, and like people we'd stop, people would go to the bathroom in the gas station, like off the highway, and I would like stay in the van because that was like when there wasn't the road noise. And I would like,
Yeah.
that's when I would do the vocals into like, and then put like the auto like garage band squirrel auto tune on and so I showed all these songs to Tommy when I went back down there, and he kind of, yeah, just like turned to me afterwards and was like, after hearing that song, was like, that's like, that needs to be on the record.
That's an actual song.
Yeah. And I was like, well, it has the most absurd lyrics I've ever written in my whole life." And so we kind of like rewrote it, and I like we all like the three of us like sat and like in the studio together for like an entire day, kind of just like reconvening and then going off like alone and
Yeah.
like just like writing and like verses and verses and verses and trying to like figure out how to like whatever tell this weird story that I'd come up with,
Yeah.
like. And um and it was honestly like one of the most like beautiful like writing experiences I've ever had, like. And it was like Tommy did a lot of what the words ended up being were like Tommy's. Like
Yeah.
they were either lyrics from the original version, like the ones that weren't so silly, and then like stuff that Tommy wrote, and like that was so like special to be just like just seeing him like put effort and like thought into writing this song that to me was like not really like deserving of it even. I was like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? Like I
Yeah.
don't like, and like, and then we finished it and recorded it, and like and I mean we were so excited. Like it was it was like really fun, like one of the funnest recording experiences for sure. And we did like a lot of like drum loops and like just I don't know, stuff that I had never really done before
Mm.
in recording. And then after that I kind of like struggled for a long time with like, is this really like, am I putting this on the record? Like
Yeah, because it was so different.
I thought it was so silly and I couldn't like separate the origin of it from like what it
Mm.
ended up becoming. But like, yeah, I got to a point where I was, I had like detached from that and I was just listening to the song as it came, like in sequence, um, in like the record. And I was like, oh, this is a song. And now we
Yeah.
like, we play it at our shows and it's like, it's just a song. Like, it's a really
Yeah.
fun song to play. And I don't think of it really differently. Like every once in a while, we'll all kind of think about it and just like start laughing because it's so absurd.
Well, this
Um,
is a good segue because I wanted to ask you, you've been on tour a lot recently. How has playing the new material felt?
like really fun. I mean, we went on tour in November and it was kind of like before that I was trying to figure out like what songs were we gonna play.
Mm.
Um, it was kind of like a big tour, like, and we were gonna be playing to people that
Right, this
like we
is
were
when you were
opening.
opening for Slow Pulp.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was like playing for someone else's audience,
Hmm.
and we are gonna be like introducing ourselves to people every night. Um, And so, like my instinct is to kind of be like, let's play the release stuff, and then that's
Yeah.
like the like sensible part of me that's like, then people
Right,
can
the
go
stuff
home
people
and
go home and listen
yeah,
to. Yeah.
it's like that's what they just heard. And then I kind of like by the time we started rehearsing for the tour, there was only like three or four songs that I wanted to play from the old record.
Yeah.
And then everything else was new. And we just kind of learned the whole like relearned the whole record and
Yeah.
like um prepared like mostly everything to be played. And then um the first show we played three of the old songs, and right after the show we like got off stage and I was like, we're not doing that again. Like we're playing only new
After
songs.
the
I
first
like,
show,
yeah, I was like, I can't do
you're
that.
done.
I was like so like we were just so excited. Like the new songs were
Yeah.
like unbelievably fun to play
Yeah.
and are so different in my
And you
mind.
were
Like,
so within that headspace. Like you weren't as
yeah.
tapped into the practice headspace.
Yeah. And it felt like we were trying to find new ways to like play those songs to like keep them interesting, and
Yeah.
it just still wasn't like stacking up to like how exciting it was to play the new songs. So we would play like one old song a night
Hmm.
basically and then play like the rest of them were songs from the new record. And yeah, definitely was like favorite tour so far for that reason, because I felt connected to the music in like a new way, and I feel like we had leveled up as a band a little bit,
Mm.
and just like our arrangements, and like it was the first time that I was like playing with an acoustic guitar in addition to like having an electric guitar. Like I was going back and forth. And that was kind of something that we'd always wanted to do, like find a way to incorporate acoustic into the
Yeah.
live band. And for so long it didn't really make sense because we were just a trio,
Yeah.
and I wanted to keep it like, kind of a rock band and
Right,
like
because when you've done
having,
trios, I've seen you do trio style too, which is you are naturally having to cover a bit more lead as well as
yeah,
rhythm.
totally. And like my kind of way of approaching that was just like, I'm gonna kind of lean into like loud, kind
Yeah.
of like distorted guitar, like definitely way more so than on our recordings,
Mm.
just to kind of fill up as much space as
Yeah.
possible. Um, and then to be able to kind of sit back now, both in like recordings and in a live sense, whether it's just like I can play acoustic and have
Yeah.
that be like the softer element, or I'm like playing electric still, but I'm like I can be super clean, or I can, have a really minimal part and like lean on lean on Jack and Bailey, but lean on Andy too, as like,
Right. Andy, who plays
we
guitar in the band now.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we have two guitars, like um there's so much more that we can do now with two
Okay,
guitars. Like
so
that
so
was like,
speaking of this, let's talk a little gear. So,
Yeah.
what's your current setup?
So I have a Fender Blues Junior as my amp. Um,
Can do
which
no
I've
wrong.
yeah, can do no wrong. And I've had people like repair this amp and be like, it doesn't sound like it sounds different than all the other like Blues Juniors that I've heard. And I'm like, oh, so
You're
I
special.
can't ever I'm special. I can't ever get rid of this amp.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I love that amp. I
Hmm.
drive the fuck out of it, and I keep it on. Have the fat button pressed down at all times.
Okay.
Um,
Take
and
notes, everybody.
and I play my electric is a water slide,
Cool.
like Strat body
Hmm.
that I love and adore.
When did you get
And
that?
I got that um right when we finished, or I don't even know if we had finished the first record yet,
Okay, so it's
but
been with you for for a minute,
yeah, it was kind of like my gift to myself with like we had gotten like in advance basically, and like I was like,
which is
this
amazing.
is crazy. And like Jack was able to use like a lot of that to kind of like upgrade studio stuff, and like
Yeah.
we were just kind of able to upgrade things like gear wise and just with
Well,
our
again, because
setups.
you
And
had made the whole record for free, essentially. So
yeah,
once you get the
yeah,
advance, you don't have to use it to, to pay for studio time,
right. And so that was like huge. And so my like gift to my big purchase was that guitar, which was like
which has been your
I
mainstay since.
yeah, I mean I haven't touched my other electric. I mean I like before that I played like a Mexican telly
Hmm.
that I love how that guitar sounds, even though I haven't played it in years and
Yeah.
years. So but I just really didn't like the finish. It was just like, oh, I got
That's
this when I
fine.
was 14 or
Yeah.
13, and it's just classic like sunburst white pick guard, and I was like, I can't do
Yeah.
this.
It's not your
And
vibe anymore.
yeah, and I
But
had,
the water slide is a Strat. It's blue, right?
mhm. Yeah, it's blue, and then the pick guard is like flames, which is like
Yeah.
kind of hard to see from like far away. Like it kind of is just like a reddish brownish
Yeah.
pick guard, but up close, it's like literally looks like flames,
So
which is
sick.
pretty sick to me. Um,
And then
but
what's
yeah,
the
and then
acoustic?
it's a Blue Ridge. I actually don't even know what kind of Blue Ridge,
Mm.
but I got introduced to those guitars by Eric in Silsby because he has a Blue Ridge, and I had never heard of those
Mm.
guitars before. But um, yeah, when I went down there and played it for the first time, I was like, "This is the greatest guitar I've ever played."
Yeah.
And he was like, "They're like they're like bluegrass, like picking guitars,
Yeah.
basically, like flat picking guitars." And um, yeah, I mean, it's I kind of every day I like re-fall in love with it, especially when I like play other people's guitars that
Mm.
like there's definitely like things that I'm like jealous about with other people's acoustics and like but my guitar is like really easy to play.
Yeah.
Like I can do like weird like chords that are like, sometimes like if I had a different acoustic it would be the kind of thing that's like, oh, I can only play this part on an electric guitar
Yeah.
comfortably. But like my acoustic is so just like the action is like basically non-existent, and like it's just like it's just it just glides. And
So, so on the electric side of things, what are you an effects guy? Are you going
um
straight into the amp? What are you doing?
well, I went straight into the amp for a long time.
Okay.
I was like not
You were a
ever an
kid.
effects person. Yeah, like when I was like in high school playing guitar, I was not like the pedal collecting guitar person. I was like, I have my one like guitar, and like I'm
Yeah.
gonna like play it till it breaks. And I didn't really know much. Like I was pretty scared of pedals because I just like that wasn't what I wanted to spend money on when I was a kid, and like
Hmm.
didn't want to like I just wanted like a nice guitar, and then that was like all I needed. And uh and then eventually I was like, okay, I need a pedal tuner. So that was my
Okay.
first pedal.
It's a good place to
Was a
start.
tuner. I
Hmm.
went just like no pedal board, no nothing, just like I have 2/4 inches and a pedal tuner.
Honestly,
And
respect.
that was my vibe for a while. And then I got JHS color box,
Okay. That was
which
the
was
gateway
like,
drug.
yeah, basically. And like it's it was just like a very popular pedal, it seemed, among like my
Mm,
Chicago like guitar friends, like a lot of people that like I just loved like their tone and their playing. I was like noticing it on their pedal boards, and Jack
mm.
was kind of like, yeah, that's like that pedal's cool. And so I uh I bought that, and that was like then I just had the two,
Mm,
the tuner and and the like basically was just like a preamp that I can drive if I want to, but more than anything it's like um an EQ. And then
yeah.
it like that was like I just wanted like more control over like my EQ, and what that wasn't just like the amp settings.
Hmm.
And then I got a boost so I could drive. I put the boost before the color box so I could drive the color box, and that was like my like turning distortion on.
Yeah.
Um and then before um the last tour I got one of the like Fairfield circuitry pedals.
Best.
Um
I
I
love
got
their
the
stuff.
I think it's just the overdrive or
Yeah.
like yeah. I bought that like kind of on a whim, like at Chicago Music Exchange when I went before tour to get like I was like I need a new quarter inch, and like let
Yeah.
me get some picks and whatever, and just like doing my rounds, and I was like I'm gonna get this. And I was like I can return it if it's dumb
Yeah.
and doesn't change anything, and I like fell in love with it. And it's
Yeah.
so then I rearranged all
Of
three of my
course.
pedals were rearranged, and I put the boost after everything. And so now it's like color box, Fairfield, into the boost.
So
And
sick.
that's everything.
Which is crazy to me because I've seen you play several times and you get so many wild tones, but it is truly the player, not the gear, is the truth.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely like I mean, I was definitely told as like a kid when I started playing guitar, like, don't lean on pedals. Like this,
Mm,
like the director of like our School of Rock was like that was something that he said that I like really never forgot.
mm.
And I remember him kind of like shitting on the edge, being like, "You take away the edges of pedals, like what do you have?" And I was like, so
That's
true.
so funny. Oh my God.
And I did a Jimi Hendrix like themed show or whatever for
Right,
School
because
of
just to
Rock. And
recap for people that don't know, what often happens at these School of Rocks is there will be like a themed show of a band or an artist, and then
right.
and then all the songs will be of that artist.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did
And
a
at the
you did a
yeah.
Jimi Hendrix one.
And at the time this is like my favorite guitarist. Like
Hmm.
I own like every record
Hmm.
of
Wait,
his.
how old are you at this moment?
Like probably 15 or
Okay.
14.
Okay.
Um
When you do the Jimi Hendrix tribute.
yeah. Yeah. And maybe a little no, yeah, like 14. And there were literally some songs where like we weren't allowed to use pedals for like the first few rehearsals. Like for the first few weeks of rehearsals, it was like,
That's heavy
oh,
duty.
this is like a whatever, like, he's doing something really crazy in this solo. Like it's just like a wah pedal solo. And it's like, yeah, you can't use that yet. Like you have to learn it. And like that was like I thought that was sick. Especially because
Yeah.
there was like, I don't know, there was like kids that were pedal kids, and I remember I just thought that wasn't cool. Like,
Mm.
they would just have like 40 pedals and like
As
10
children?
guitars as children. Like, I know. And I was like, but if you're playing an acoustic guitar, no
Hmm.
effects, no amp, no, you don't sound good.
Right.
And like to me, that was just like, you're
Right. It was
trying
too
to,
much of a crutch.
yeah. And so like I was like, my tone will be clean until it sounds good, and then
Yeah.
I'll
It's a good way to
start
learn.
adding other things. I think so too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of my path to
Okay,
like where
we've
I
got the
am now
full
with
rig
pedals.
rundown.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you to kind of finish off, you and I have bonded over the years over music and literature.
Hmm.
So I was curious, anything you've read recently that you really dug and anything you've been listening to. It doesn't have to be new music, but just things
Hmm.
that have kind of been on your mind lately.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading. I don't read, like, I don't sit down and read a lot of poetry,
Mm,
honestly. Like, books, like, it's like maybe a couple a year. And
you're more of a
I've been
novel
reading,
guy.
yeah. And I've been reading, or like, stories or
Mm.
whatever. But I've been reading Fernando Pessoa, and it's kind of like cracking my mind wide open. And
A good
I think
book will
it's,
do that.
yeah, I think it's like right when I kind of started reading it, like, just the introduction, they talk about his whole thing, which was like having um heteronyms, his like different like names that he would
Mm.
publish under that were like it wasn't like a pen name, like it was like he created like people, like fully
Whoa.
like fleshed out like characters that were like, and he like made it like he didn't like it was like the truth to him. Like he was like these are all different people, and he had like literally like 80, like
Wow.
so many. But there's like the collection that I have is like, kind of all the main ones. There's like one kind of main like American or like English
That he
writing.
wrote as. Is this a character he
Yeah.
created and wrote
Yeah.
as? Wow.
And then like four main ones that wrote in like Portuguese, which was
Wow.
like his main language. And yeah, it's wild. And I just like got through the first like person, and now I'm like on the next one. And I was like the second like character, I was like, yeah, I don't really fuck with this guy. I'm gonna move on. But the first one, I was like, yeah, just
I
like
mean, that's
sitting,
the
just
thing
like,
with collections, like you don't have to love the
yeah,
whole thing. You can love
totally.
certain aspects.
But I thought it was so cool because he really distinguished them in terms of style. Like they're all kind
Mm,
of radically, I mean, it's all him at the end of the day, but they're all really different. And he made them have like different political beliefs and like different, like, they're from different countries, and like,
yeah.
and I was like, this is like, I don't know, just the first thing I thought about. I was like, oh, it's like making like a new band, you're like,
That's exactly what I was about to
I'm
say.
trying to
It's like
like, I'm
having
trying to
your
make some
solo
like
project,
shoegaze,
new
and I don't
band.
want to, yeah, I
I
don't
just
want to
saw a
make that kind of
video.
music for this.
I just saw a video that's totally on this topic, which was like Brittany Howard has a new hardcore band. And there's like this video
Yeah,
of
I
Brittany
saw that.
Howard screaming. And I was just like, this is
Yeah,
so sick.
I
Like, I
know.
don't expect this at all, but I wish people did it more, having these
Yeah,
various projects where you get to explore something new completely.
totally. Because it's like, there's like there's like endless kinds of music that you can make. And like, I feel like any person that makes anything will like kind of feel this to some extent. Like there's like almost too many options sometimes of
Totally.
like what kind of artist you can be, or like
Yeah.
what kind of band are you. And it's like to not limit yourself to like
Yeah.
one thing. And it's like that can be done within one project, like that's like my favorite thing about Wilco, and like growing up listening to that band is like every record they're almost like a pop band in that sense of like they reinvent themselves a little bit,
Yeah.
where they're like, yeah, now we're gonna make our like synth album, and now we're gonna make our like weirdo folk album, and
Yeah.
now we're gonna make like like Guitar Minis record. And but
They
like,
do whatever
you
they
can
want, and
also,
that's why we love them.
yeah, but then you can also do it, in the way of, I want to make this kind of music now. Like I'll start a band for that,
Yeah.
like a new band. And but yeah, that I've been thinking about that a lot, and really enjoying reading that.
And what have you been
Um,
listening to lately?
what have I been listening to? Um,
Anything that's really struck you?
um, well, my friends in the band Horse Girl just
Yes.
put a record out that I think is really phenomenal and
Kate LeBon
amazing. And
produced
like, yeah, at the Loft, at Wilco's
at the
Loft.
it all comes full
Um,
circle.
and that album is, I just think that band is incredible, and this record is like amazing. But it's also, I mean, it's special to me because I love them as people, but it's also really special because we were simultaneously in the studio making our second records. Like we were in Silsby in January of last year,
Hmm.
like and like literally the exact same time Horse Girl was in
So
the
you could
studio
trade
making their
notes.
second record. Yeah, we were just like sending pictures back and forth, being like, like the studio, and like it was really
Yeah.
fun, and like and our records kind of ended up having almost like pretty similar timelines in terms of
Yeah.
release, which like made me feel good because I was like, okay, that means I didn't take too long because like, it's
Not
basically
like
is what they
last
did
time.
and not like last time and so yeah, and it's like, your sophomore album is like, like it's a big thing. It feels like scarier than your first record in a way
Yeah.
because you have something to follow up and you also have like decisions to make of like, do we make the same kind of record or do we make something totally different or do we do something in the middle? And I think we both of us kind of like Free Range and Horse Girl like kind of seemed like we made the decision to make something entirely different in a way,
Mm.
and which I think is really cool. And I think they like I don't know. It's just fun to see your friends like find and develop their sound, and it's
Yeah.
like even when a first record is so strong, it's
Yeah.
like there's so many places you can go from there, and which is like exciting for me because I'm just like, you know, always trying to envision what does like a lifelong career in music look like? Like how do you put out your 40th album if you were to get to that point? It's like God, like is there
Okay,
more to be
Bob
done?
Dylan.
It's like yeah, how do you like it's kind of scary to think about like damn, if I want to like keep doing it, do I have to like make like 15 really bad albums or something? Like
It's a
not that he has
process.
that many, but it's
Yeah.
it's um yeah, you have to find a way to like keep it interesting and
Hmm.
try not to burn out and try not to feel like I don't want to be like repetitive and
Yeah.
you know it's it's cool to see like bands like really take leaps, and so I would say that's probably my favorite record right now.
Yeah.
But also, as you know, I love Samia,
Oh, we
and
love Samia so much.
and yeah, the songs that she's been putting out I've been kind of really obsessed with.
Yeah,
And
she's
I've
got a
just
new
been,
record coming too.
yeah, I've kind of just been like playing those songs in like my weird open tuning, like
Oh,
just
sick.
for like hours and hours. Um, and I've also been really into all of us. I'm with a bunch of friends right now and kind of at like a music writing retreat. Um, and we've been really obsessed with just listening to and playing Teenage Dirtbag.
Okay,
Um,
classic.
we've we're working on a cover for ourselves.
For
But
your own enjoyment.
I had a pretty incredible moment with this song, or
Uh-huh.
with this song as the soundtrack on the way here to where we are, which is Wisconsin, and um, it's like really snowy up here, and we were kind of like maybe 15 minutes away from where we were going, driving from Chicago, listening to Teenage Dirtbag, and it's like at like the climax of the song, like in the outro, like screaming, like it's loud and really we're like hyped up on this incredible song. We're with Andy, and Andy's listening to the song for the first time.
Andy had never heard Teenage Dirtbag?
Yeah. And
That's
so
insane to me.
I know, and it's like the perfect song for them. Like it's
Yeah.
like totally like everything about it is like Andy coded.
Uh-huh.
And so um and then in this moment when the song is like at its most intense,
Hmm.
a snowmobile like crosses the highway, just like comes and crosses the highway, and then like to like our right, like on the shoulder, just like there's like a huge snowbank, like freaking goes up the side and it's just like riding the side of the snowbank in this like really epic manner. And it's like we're
Wow.
like freaking out, like screaming, like "Oh my God!" and like couldn't manage to get any kind of like video of it because it all just
You
happened
just
so
had to
fast. And it was
experience
just
this
we were
cinematic
just like
moment.
yeah, left with this feeling of just like awe and like amazement of like, I don't know if I've ever witnessed anything like so fitting,
Yeah.
like for like what we're listening to. Like it was crazy.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, I think that's just an
I mean,
incredible song. And
those are some good recs. Okay, so
yeah,
you are 21 now. Yes?
I sure am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we've established that free range began around 14, 15. What advice would 21-year-old Sophia want to give or want to tell 14, 15-year-old Sophia that was just beginning the project of free range?
Hmm. I guess like at the time it felt like writing songs was like once I started doing it, that was like my thing, and it kind of felt like, to be honest, it felt like I had nothing else going for me. Like this is my thing. Like I'm not really good at anything else. And I like started not being really good at school
Mm,
and like didn't really like have any motivation for it and was just like struggling with like whatever and like the people, like I didn't really connect with people at my school,
mm,
and School of Rock was kind of was a really big part of my life and especially like my social life, but
yeah.
I definitely felt like, you know, that whole environment was very like rock band, like, and like people listen to like weird music, like weird for the sake of being weird, which was like cool. Like I like
Mm,
at the time was like into a lot of it, but ultimately that wasn't like, I didn't want to be in a band like that. I didn't want
mm,
to make that kind of music and didn't like, that's not what I sat at home and listened to. Like I sat and listened to like, you know, folk music or whatever,
mm,
and like just felt like very like almost like outcasted like by my own doing of just that I liked really quiet music,
yeah.
and I thought it was kind of like embarrassing. Like I was like, this is like, I had like my best friend Gillian, named after Gillian Welch, so I knew that she was cool.
She's
um
hella cool.
we were like, she was like my friend who I like bonded over music the most with before I met like Jack and Bailey, and like we liked all the same music, and she had grown up in a house of like her parents love like country and bluegrass
Mm,
and folk music, and like that's like a big part of my upbringing in a sense. Like that's a big part of my mom's music taste, and so I just grew up like being very aware of like folk music and country music, and like that it was cool. Like I thought that's what I thought was cool. And so I guess I would tell myself like that what I was doing was like was cool. Like when I think about it now, I'm like, that was sick. Like I was like ignoring like all of my responsibilities to
mm.
like,
So punk.
write like the most devastating like garage band composition you've ever heard, and like just like was pouring like hours and hours and hours into it, and felt like I was kind of like alone in it. Like I didn't have anyone to show it to,
Mm,
and like was just kind of waiting for when it would like, I don't know, amount to something, and like wasn't sure if it, like, there was like a part of me that was like, I don't know if this is any good. And
yeah,
then
of
there was a
course.
part of me that was like, I think this might be really good. Like I was proud of
And
it.
and you had said to yourself, and this is the only thing I feel like I can do.
Yeah, right. Like I was like, I'm not, like I feel like I'm like getting results that like I mean, I'm making songs that I'm having fun listening to. And that's
Yeah.
all I wanted, Like I wanted to make something that was like writing songs for me was just kind of like, I want to listen to music, and the kind of music I want to listen to isn't quite in existence. Like it's
Mm,
like, there's like something missing, and I need to make it so then I can listen to it, and then like, close my eyes and like listen to the exact kind of music that I want to hear. And so yeah, I think I would just tell myself that I'm doing like exactly what I should be doing, and to not feel like a freak for it or something, or
yeah.
like feel, yeah, like I
I,
was doing less important things than everyone else.
Totally. Beautiful and such a great place to end. Thanks for coming on the old podcast. I appreciate
Of course.
it.
Thank you for having me. I've been a fan of Fretboard for a long time. 14-year-old Sophia was, yeah, for sure.
I mean, everyone who's listened to this podcast has heard me also being like, it's crazy to be on here because I had it in the house as a kid. So, thanks for coming on, fellow
Thanks for having me.
Sophia.
Yes, thank you, fellow Sophia.